Wow, thank you all. It's such an honor to be here. Creative Mornings is such an incredible gathering of people and sharing of ideas, and I'm really humbled to be here amongst so many amazing people. You've all made me feel so welcome, and so thank you all. I was realizing as I was preparing music for this that I've been fascinated with sound now for 50 years. Since I was in kindergarten and first discovered the piano and started making little sounds on it, to getting my first synthesizer when I was a teenager, I've been fascinated with sound and music and the art of recording. And the more I started recording, the more I recognized that there were ephemeral moments that we try to be in the flow of, to capture. There's a dance that occurs when we're looking for these moments. And in a reciprocal exchange, as someone who's recording and maybe someone that's being recorded, there's this unique moment that occurs that's sort of almost outside of time, where a musician is trying to be a channel to bring in something larger and from somewhere else through themselves. And the higher the level of command of their instrument, the more they're able to tap into that flow. And as a recordist, I've been witness to the dance that it is to get into that flow. I've recorded some people that the moment they saw the record light, they choked up. So what was my response? Tape up every single record light, cover every single light, put microphones everywhere, click it into record, and then say, I'm going to go for a walk. Why don't you just jam and see what you're going to do, and then I'll come back and we'll sit down and do stuff, to discover that I've recorded these magical things. Some people are able to really bring it in the moment, and it's just a matter of finding their comfortable space and getting into it. So that's been really interesting to discover. And I know for myself, I have my own flow that I have to nurture to, channel amazing things. And I'd like to share some recordings that I've made. I think it was really interesting to consider this gathering today and to look into my library and find all sorts of interesting recordings. Quite a few of them have yet still to see the light of day, as the way we share music has been evolving and changing, and I'd like to start. Now, the first recording I'm going to share is actually some waves that I recorded on the beach in India, and it started with water. And for me, water has been something very special in my life. I had this awareness meditating beside a river once that water is life. Without water on this planet, there is no life. And that expanded to an artistic challenge that as I would meet different artists, I would ask them if they'd like to record some lyrics or create a piece around water and how they would share that. And so I'm going to share with you a few different recordings I made that encompass that. So in the 90s, DAT machines became a thing, which was a little portable recorder and a microphone, and suddenly we were freed up to run around in the woods and anywhere looking to nature or any sounds that we could hear anywhere for inspiration. And so I began with a dear friend, Tim Floyd, from Bellingham, running all over the place looking for interesting things, and we found this really interesting big concrete cistern up in the mountains. And we started just performing in it and creating rhythms. And from these water rhythms, my travels somehow led me to Peru in an action to find ways to show a tribe in the jungle how they could present the vitality of their ecosystem to the board office of this company in their general board meeting, to show that there was a lot more special in their environment. And this was a water icaro that was recorded in Peru. Praying for the health and vitality of water around the planet. Now from there, I ended up on Salt Spring Island, and a local Cree artist, Kinney Starr, showed up to play a show. And so I asked her if she'd like to write some lyrics to create something about water.
Who will save our waters? Save them for our great-granddaughters. Save them for our great-granddaughters' sons. Tell me, who will save our waters? Save them for our great-granddaughters. Save them before all is dead and done. Hey, hey, oh, 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 please, don't say no. Hey, hey, oh, oh, please, don't say no, 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 no.
Further studies reveal that those cancers were part of the petrochemical business.
And them just go splitting the land. Split the land for richer Malay. Carve her up and spit her back in poison. And faster than them rivers can run. Leaks spring up and tailings come undone. The grandfathers watch the young ones die. Oh, water catches flame. Water's catching flame. Water's catching.
And from there, we ended up back in my studio, and a Dene First Nations medicine man asked me if he could come to my studio to record some ceremonies. And one of the songs he wanted to share was a water prayer. Whoops.
Feeling so triumphant
Whoops.
when I upset. The unrest is the key to the success. And the success, decompress.
And from there, my adventures continued, and I continued asking artists how they could support water. Then I discovered some dear friends who had this idea to start cleaning up the ocean and the marine debris that started collecting. And I believe she was a guest here, Chloe Dubois, and her partner James Middleton, and Ocean Legacy Foundation. And I fell in love with them and what they were doing, and I decided to challenge one of my writing partners to write a theme song for them, because everybody needs a theme song. And this one's No Time to Run. This is when I started really feeling that music transcends us. Music has a power, music is medicine, and that music is used in so many different ways, both to get people together, which is why I've always incorporated beats into a lot of what I've done, because I've recognized that if you can get people dancing together, you can serve a whole other layer of musicality to them, that if their bodies are engaged, they're much more open and receptive to other layers, music from other cultures. And so this became a sort of subtle recipe for a lot of what I began presenting to people, as many of my concerts or shows were often centered around dancing. In the early 90s, I used to write lots of ambient music, and I started discovering not a lot of people went out on Saturday night to listen to ambient music. It was something they did at home, but if you wanted people to come out, you had to have some fire, and you had to have some wood on your fire. And so that became a real journey for me in exploring dance and rhythm. And I started meeting drummers, and I started becoming fascinated with Indian rhythms and Indian music and these elaborate beat cycles and percussion instruments that really spoke in other ways that really communicated rhythm. And I started recording music with those types of people. And then I got another experience to go to Peru. And when I was there, I was able to meet community and ask them, what role does music play in their community? And they say, well, they don't really listen to music for pleasure, but that they have songs that they sing to make the plants grow. They have songs to sing to call the sun in the morning. They have songs to honor, aspects of their way, and songs to pass down stories. But it's not in a way that, we often associate music with leisure activities and something we put on in the background. And so I started asking if these would be things that they would be open to recording. And so this is something that I've never really actually played for anyone yet. And this is a song that the women sing to make the yucca plants grow. And what really was quite particular about this is that the yucca plant, they chew the leaves and create this mush that they spit back into bottles, and they ferment in the sun. And their mates choose them based on the taste of this brew. Now, one day in the sun, and it's already about 12%, but you realize that the pheromones and hormones and all the stuff from someone's saliva is encoded in that. And then the men would sample the different brews, and they would choose their mate based on the taste of their brew. And I just thought that was fascinating, especially when it began with singing. The women would sing to their plant that they were growing, and then they would harvest it and make this brew. And I just found that absolutely fascinating. And so I'm really excited to share a little taste of this recording. So I like to make frames around these recordings. I might record something, but the frame that you make, how you present it, can change the context. And so this is a frame that I wrote around this particular piece. So music tells stories. Different cultures around the world use music to tell these stories. I was fortunate to meet an amazing Maori singer in my time that I spent in New Zealand, which is 5 trips now over the years to go share music there. It's very interesting. There's a lot of similarity between New Zealand and British Columbia. I feel like the people enjoy the same styles of music, are really open, really down to earth, very much like Canadians and people out here in the West. So the last time I was in New Zealand, I was hanging out with my friend, and she brought me to her marae, which is her community center, building that as a child she grew up and I asked her if there's anything she'd like to share, and she shared this Maori creation myth. And so I'm very excited to share. This is another recording that no one has heard yet, so you guys are the first to hear this. And I'll slowly bring in the frame that I wrote around it. So I work with a singer in Montreal who's an Indo-Brazilian who has an incredible voice, and she sent me this little recording, just her voice. And so inspired by it, in one of those just moments of magic, this song just formed around it. Now, as someone who grew up in the West, I was born in England and adopted. My father was from Kashmir, my mother was from England. But I grew up in Canada, and I'm a Canadian in all sense of the word. I played road hockey and hockey, but I always found myself drawn to music from the Indian continent, from the Qawwali music that I used to hear my father play, to the first time I went to a classical Indian concert and was transported. And I began, at that point in the early 90s, a decade-long quest to find Indian musicians who would be interested in stepping out of their traditional structure and look to the contemporary, to look to modern beats and synthesizers as also an accompaniment to what they're doing. And I was so blessed to meet this amazing woman, Catherine Potter, who is a master bansuri player, which is the Indian bamboo flute. And I did a couple sessions with her in the early 90s that still to this day are some of my favorite recordings that are just so emotional. And I'm just really excited to share a bit of that. And I'm going to start again. Oops. I'll start off with just the flutes, hopefully. And then I'll bring more of it in. And shortly after I made that recording, I was back on the West Coast, and I met this young kid who grew up in Goa with his parents, and he had started collecting mouth harps, which are these little metallic kind of springs almost that when you breathe and play through them, they create incredible sonic textures. And this kid had a collection of probably 60 of them, and we spent 2 hours recording mouth harps. And I think the mouth harp is so cool. I'm still afraid to play them because you run the risk of like banging your teeth with them. But I think they sound great. Sure. And there are no effects on the mouth harps. By far, I think, still one of the coolest instruments and the ultimate portable instrument. They're like literally this big. So my journey to record sounds and to see the world from the lens of sound. When I was in India the first time, I would put my headphones in with my DAT recorder, and I would just walk around listening to what the mic was picking up, and if I would hear something, I would go towards that. And I started making these stories somehow, or they became stories of just sound. And the world is sound. The Indians say Nada Brahma, which is we are all vibration, and life is vibration, and vibration is sacred. And so in my journey, and I feel like I'm only just getting warmed up here, there's so much incredible music to be recorded. There are amazing musicians everywhere. You just have to stop and almost just wait for them to show up or set the intention, and everybody shows up. And even people that aren't, quote, musicians, someone that's not actively pursuing a career of playing, there are incredible people. I'm sure there are people here that play musical instruments that don't consider themselves musicians who are absolutely incredible. And I love recording those people because there's so much interesting sound that I feel like it's just so fun to share. And I'm so honored to have shared these recordings with you all today. And I hope you enjoyed them. And I'm certainly excited to hear some questions and able to answer some things, but
You know what? Host privilege. I'm going to ask the first question. Is that cool?
Absolutely.
Hi. My name is Mark. First-time caller. One thing that Kari didn't mention about Adam, the reason he forgot his laptop is he had food poisoning yesterday.
2 days ago.
2 days ago. So he's actually just this side of green. So thank you so much. A long drive, feeling ill, improvising to make this happen. You're amazing. You're a talented dude.
Oh, and shout out to Baram Diaboro for lending me his laptop in the nick of
thanks,
time.
man.
Big appreciation.
A friend at the front row and I were talking about a couple of things. My first thought was, with regard to kind of ethos and the musicality and the construction of these rhythms and what it is you're doing on stage, but also what you do professionally as a musician and a performer. You're sort of a collector in many ways, right? You're collecting from cultures and collecting from genres and you're collecting. And that's amazing, and I'd love to know what else you collect. Whoa, I just got really loud. But also, it seems like an IP ethics, minefield, because you've got all of these beautiful musicians who've given you permission to use their stuff. Then you put it together into something else. You make profit, and we can talk about
I'm a musician.
Yeah, I know. Sorry,
Profit.
I don't know what I was thinking. But let's say you made $1 million off of a song, and now you've got 30 musicians that you have to take care of because you sample. Can you talk a little bit about that process?
Absolutely. Early on, I recognized that was a thing, and so I developed on one level a performance release. And so depending on the musician, it's usually sitting down and saying, hey, I would like to record you, and you have these things. What mutually beneficial way could we create that? Ideally, because I never know sometimes when I'm making the recordings what I'm going to do with them, when I might do something with them. I like to offer an exchange, like here's some money for the session, and here's a paper that gives me the rights to be able to chop it up or slice it and dice it or reinterpret it and add it to something. And so I have, agreements that are pretty clear, so that during that moment of recording, or usually before the recording, we sit down and talk, and there are different levels of musicians, and what would be a nice feed for an exchange. Some people say, well, I don't even want that. Here you go, you can have it. I don't want any money for it. Some musicians are actually more interested in collaborating, and so, okay, I'll give you this, but then perhaps you could help me record some songs of my own, and so we'll do a trade, and I'll record some things for them that are then theirs, that they can do whatever they want with.
Oh yeah, because you're also a producer.
I'm a producer as well, yeah. And then, but I also compose music for film, and so having a wide library of sound at my disposal that I have permission to use is important when I, represent myself as a composer for someone's film, because then they need all the rights in order to put it online and all that stuff. So that's been the most clear way that I've been able to reach a clear agreement and arrangement with musicians at the start, and that's so far in 30 years been really good and kept everything pretty clear.
Okay, I saw lots of hands. Okay.
Oh, sure. Hi, my name is Perry Booker. Fabulous performance. I think you could have gone for a lot longer than you did. I think we had to dial you back. So with the Peruvian flower growing chant that you recorded, did the people that you recorded, did they get to hear the final production that you created and shared with us?
No, because there is still technically no final. It's one little box that is the recording,
right.
And then I've written some stuff around, but you guys are still the first people that I've just sort of performed it live. I still haven't, I'm still not quite happy with the frame that I've made around it, and actually somehow in collecting music for this presentation, I started discovering, I have that recording in this one, and now I seem like I almost have a collection of medicine songs or something from all these different cultures that I'm now maybe going to put together into a recording and present, and then I definitely will share them. I gave them the recordings on the spot that I made of them. We shared a USB stick or something.
Cool.
But yeah, no, it's still, this is fresh. No one's heard this actually, yet before, since I recorded them.
By the way, while you're talking to these fine people,
yes,
you're welcome to fiddle with beautiful sounds if you'd like. We're not gonna stop you.
Okay, well, I do want to distract from being able to hear.
Hi, Adam. It's Monica here.
Hello.
Thanks for all that. And I was really touched by what you said, Brahma not a Brahma, so we're all just vibration. And I wonder if you ever thought about, I'm sure you have, but how it could be applied to healing, using sound for healing disease and other things.
Absolutely. That's a huge part of it. And the more you go down those rabbit holes, you start discovering that people have knowledge bases of particular frequencies that they've observed bring about healing and can catalyze situations for healing. And a lot of ambient music and deeper music can be coded with that. I mean, I'm sure in frenetic rhythm, you could probably put those as well. And years ago, I got to participate in a project where I wrote a bunch of music for this Music for Cancer Survivors. It's a University of Calgary project. And for that project, I sat down and composed some music. One piece, I was thinking, well, what is life? And like, if we look to nature, what have we observed in nature that might be transferable? And so for me, that was the Fibonacci sequence, as that seemed to be an underpinning of a lot of life, the way plants manifest and grow. And so I wrote down a whole bunch of Fibonacci numbers, and then I played chords that were based on those numbers. And then if you can imagine a chord that's based on Fibonacci numbers as intervals, but then I broke the chord apart. So imagine each note now, instead of being in a chord, is on its own track. And then I made each note loop on a Fibonacci number. And so as the notes repeat, it cascades and starts creating its own composition. And so that's actually currently one of my most popular pieces on Spotify. So if you can go there, you'll find a piano piece that's based on that. And sort of when I started listening to it, it really felt different. Like it didn't feel like someone playing. It had another feeling. And for me, it really invoked a feeling of calmness and just a stillness that as I shared it, people started reporting all sorts of interesting experiences, and like whether we heal ourselves. Stuff from outside doesn't heal us. We heal ourselves. So it's more about creating or nurturing the ground to invite that or to catalyze that. In the mid-90s, when I was recording with my friend Tim Floyd in Bellingham, and we were running around with a DAT recorder, recording all sorts of nature things, we met this incredible inventor on Lummi Island, Kevin Jones, and he had developed this machine called what he called the Wave Song, and it was 4 plexiglass or PVC tubes with little pressure sensors on the end going on tubes to a box. And he wrote this software that would analyze the pressure change in the tube and create a MIDI data stream. And then it had a little floppy disk. And he let me borrow it. And I wrote a bunch of ambient music called the Wave Song, which was just the waves essentially playing my synthesizer with 4 channels. So I picked 4 different sounds and, played the MIDI back and then, messed around with it and recorded all these things. And they also were somehow imbued with this vibration that was very different. It doesn't sound like people playing it. It had this otherworldly or more nature worldly feeling. And so that also became something that people reported all sorts of really great experiences and really calming, healing things. And so I totally believe that, if we are vibration and we can present vibrations, we often, as you notice in a dance floor, you put a beat and eventually everybody starts dancing as one thing. Not that everybody's doing the same move, but you can feel that common pulse, and we all entrain to that. And I believe that vibrationally the same thing happens, and that I believe also with intent that you can really encode that in your music. And so I think that music is healing and, can create all sorts of healing paths.
We have a question from the Zoom room.
Okay.
We've got a question from the Zoom room. This question comes from Melissa, and she asks,
How is the circle, and it says example, Peruvian tribe, Adam, us as audience, back to Peru and original music creators, how is that circle closed? And does it go back to the originators? Do they ever reincorporate the music? Do others reframe your frames?
Oh.
Does that make sense?
I don't know. I mean,
Yeah.
sometimes I think we're more in a spiral than a circle, as it's an infinite thing, or that we toss stones in the water and the ripples go out, and at some level we have no idea, how people. I think that's what's interesting about music is you all had essentially perhaps very different experiences listening to the music, and so some people listen to it after I've recorded them and they start playing it or they bring it to their friends. Other people listen to it and that's the end of it. I don't know. It's hard to say. I don't know if I answered the question so well, but.
Okay, Adam, last question.
Okay.
Host privilege, Kari here. Can you play us one more little bit of music to close the Q&A?
Sure.
Yay, okay.
For this, I will play, there's an amazing local artist, Shine, who's an Australian dig player who studied with the masters, and we became good friends and started playing lots of music together. I guess that's the other thing. Many times when I record musicians and then I make things, then I get invited to do shows. If they're close enough, I phone them up and invite them to the show, and then we get to present that stuff live, because I still think that there's something very special in live performance, especially when there are multiple people. There's another magic, when the sum is larger than its parts, and I think that there's a magic that occurs when musicians play with each other and present something. And so as much as I have this sort of simplified DJ mode where I can share music by myself, because it's not always practical to bring 20 or 30 people around. One day maybe. It's always fun to play live with these people. Now let me see here. Bushbow.
Hey, come on. How come we're not dancing? Everybody get up. Get up. Come on. Let's go. Michael Mollica. I want to see Martin Jackson stand up. Let's see some body movement. Come on. This is the last chance. Your day starts. Your morning ends.
If you're gonna do a 30-second pitch, please go up front.
Okay.